The morning light filtered through the blinds of Trinity Hill's private hospital, casting long streaks of gold onto the polished floors of Ethan Carter's private suite. The room radiated quiet luxury: mahogany furniture, fresh lilies in crystal vases, and a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the skyline of Austin, Texas. Yet none of it mattered to Ethan. His mind was fixed on the day ahead, a meeting that would determine the future of Phoenix, the most ambitious project of his career. Sitting on the edge of his hospital bed, Ethan buttoned his crisp designer shirt, ignoring the dull ache in his chest that served as a reminder of his recent heart attack. A man like Ethan Carter didn't have time to dwell on weakness. His reflection in the mirror, gray streaks in his meticulously styled hair, a sharp jawline, and piercing blue eyes, was the very image of control. But beneath the surface, cracks were beginning to show. Dr. Nathan Ramirez, his primary physician, entered with a clipboard, his expression clouded with concern. "Mr. Carter, are you sure you're ready to leave today? I strongly recommend at least another week of rest." "I've been resting long enough," Ethan replied curtly, brushing off the comment. "I have a company to run, doctor. The world doesn't stop because of a minor inconvenience." Dr. Ramirez sighed, frustration flickering in his eyes. "This isn't minor. Your heart, my heart is fine," Ethan snapped, adjusting his watch. "I appreciate your concern, but I have a meeting this afternoon that can't be missed." The doctor hesitated, knowing further argument was futile. "Then, at least promise me you'll take it easy. Follow my instructions to the letter." Ethan gave a distracted nod, his thoughts already on the Phoenix project and the high-stakes negotiations awaiting him. His assistant, Martha Green, had sent updates throughout the night, every detail, every potential snag, meticulously outlined. This was what Ethan Carter did best: take risks, defy odds, and emerge victorious. As Dr. Ramirez left, a soft knock at the door drew Ethan's attention. A young nurse entered, her uniform pristine, her dark brown hair tied neatly into a bun. Her striking green eyes held a curious intensity, as if she carried a secret too heavy to bear. "Mr. Carter," she began, her voice calm but firm, "I need to speak with you." Ethan raised an eyebrow, irritated by the interruption. "Can this wait?" "I'm about to leave." "No," she replied, stepping closer. "It's important." There was something about her tone that made him pause. Her hands trembled slightly as she continued. "Don't go to that meeting tomorrow. It's not safe." Ethan stared at her, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. "Excuse me? Who are you to give me advice?" "My name is Sophia Clark," she said, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "I know it's not my place, but please trust me. You can't go." Ethan's irritation turned to bewilderment. He studied her face, trying to place where he might have seen her before. There was something eerily familiar about her features, her high cheekbones, the curve of her jaw. "I don't have time for this nonsense," Ethan said, his voice sharper now. "What are you talking about? Why shouldn't I go?" Sophia hesitated, her green eyes filled with something between desperation and fear. "I can't explain right now. Just, please don't go." Before Ethan could press further, she turned and left, the door clicking shut behind her. For a moment, the room was silent, except for the faint hum of hospital machinery. Ethan shook his head, dismissing the encounter as bizarre and irrelevant. He had more important things to focus on. Moments later, his driver was waiting for him in the sleek black town car at the hospital entrance. "To the office, Rodrigo?" Ethan instructed as he slid into the back seat, pulling out his phone to review the latest updates on Phoenix. As the car pulled away, Ethan glanced out the rear window. On the third floor, He saw Sophia standing by a window, her face etched with concern, and something else, sadness. For the briefest moment, their eyes met before she disappeared from view. Ethan clenched his jaw, dismissing the strange interaction. But as the car wove through the city traffic, her words lingered in his mind like a faint whisper. "Don't go to the meeting tomorrow. It's not safe." The towering glass structure of Carter Innovations headquarters gleamed in the afternoon sun, a beacon of Ethan Carter's ingenuity and ambition. As his car approached the building, the sharp lines of its modern architecture mirrored Ethan's relentless drive for perfection. Inside, the air buzzed with an undercurrent of anticipation. The employees hadn't expected their CEO's return so soon, and whispers of his arrival traveled quickly through the halls. Ethan strode into the lobby with his signature confidence, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. He barely acknowledged the employees who greeted him, his mind already immersed in the agenda for the day. As he stepped into the private elevator, his assistant, Martha Green, rushed to join him, clutching a thick folder. "Welcome back, Mr. Carter," Martha said, her tone warm but efficient. She had been his right hand for over a decade, her loyalty unwavering through every storm. "Good to be back, Martha," Ethan replied, his eyes scanning the folder she handed him. "Everything set for the presentation?" "Yes, sir," she said, adjusting her thick-rimmed glasses. "The board is assembled, and the Phoenix project materials are ready. But—" Her hesitation made Ethan look up. "What is it?" Martha hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I've noticed something unusual over the past week. Some of the board members, Jonathan Reed in particular, have been holding private discussions. They've been tense." Ethan's brow furrowed. Jonathan Reed, the COO, had been with Carter Innovations since the early days. He was charming, ambitious, and undeniably sharp, but lately Ethan had felt a shift in his demeanor. "I'll handle it," Ethan said firmly, as the elevator doors opened to the executive floor. The boardroom was a pristine space, its walls lined with digital screens and projections of Carter Innovations' achievements. The board members rose as Ethan entered, their expressions a mix of surprise and unease. "Good to see you, Ethan," said Jonathan Reed, stepping forward with a broad smile. His handshake was firm, his charisma on full display. "Jonathan," Ethan replied coolly, taking his seat at the head of the table. The meeting began with Ethan's presentation of the Phoenix Project, a groundbreaking communications platform poised to revolutionize global connectivity. As Ethan spoke, his passion for innovation shone through, commanding the room's attention. But as the presentation progressed, Ethan's sharp eyes caught subtle cues, whispered exchanges between Jonathan and Daniel Fisk, furtive glances toward the projection screen, and a sealed envelope discreetly passed between them. The envelope bore a logo that made Ethan's stomach tighten. Summit Tech, Carter Innovations' fiercest competitor. Ethan's voice faltered for only a fraction of a second before he regained his composure, continuing his pitch as though nothing had happened. Inside, his thoughts raced. What are they up to? And why is Summit Tech involved? The meeting concluded with polite applause, though Ethan noticed the forced enthusiasm in Jonathan's demeanor. "Well done, Ethan," Jonathan said, clapping a hand on his shoulder. "You've outdone yourself again." Ethan forced a smile. "Thanks, Jonathan. Dinner tomorrow? We need to catch up." "Of course," Jonathan replied smoothly. But Ethan caught the flicker of hesitation in his eyes. As the board members filed out, Ethan remained seated, his fingers tapping rhythmically on the table. Martha entered with a steaming cup of coffee, sensing her boss's unease. "Something wrong, Mr. Carter?" she asked, setting the cup down. Ethan leaned back, his gaze fixed on the empty room. "Martha, do me a favor. Keep an eye on Jonathan and Fisk. I want to know who they've been meeting with, and why." Martha nodded. "Understood." That evening, Ethan retreated to his sprawling office, a space filled with awards, patents, and photos of his late wife, Emily. He poured himself a glass of scotch, the amber liquid catching the dim light. Sophia's warning echoed in his mind. Don't go to that meeting. It's not safe. What had she meant? And how could she possibly know something about his world? A soft knock interrupted his thoughts. It was Lila Hart, a bright young talent who had joined Carter Innovations just a year earlier. She idolized Ethan, often seeking his mentorship. "Mr. Carter," she said hesitantly, stepping inside. "I know it's late, but I think there's something you should know." Ethan gestured for her to continue, intrigued by her nervousness. "I was organizing files earlier today," Lila began, her voice faltering. "And I noticed something odd. Jonathan has been signing off on data transfers, large ones, but the destinations don't match any of our usual partners." Ethan's grip on his glass tightened. "Did you report this to anyone?" "No," she said quickly. "I didn't know who to trust. I thought you should see this first." Lila handed him a folder filled with printouts, transaction logs, emails, and encrypted messages. Ethan's heart sank as he realized the depth of what he was looking at. "Good work, Lila," he said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside. "Keep this between us for now." She nodded, a flicker of relief crossing her face. As the night deepened, Ethan pored over the documents, connecting dots that painted a grim picture. Jonathan wasn't just sabotaging Phoenix. He was orchestrating something far larger. A betrayal that could dismantle everything Ethan had built. For the first time, Ethan felt the weight of his vulnerability. He had always prided himself on being one step ahead. Yet here he was, blindsided. Sophia's warning, Lila's discovery, Jonathan's behavior. It was all connected. And it was just the beginning. The sun had barely risen when Ethan Carter found himself back in his office at Carter Innovations. Despite the restless night spent dissecting the clues uncovered by Lila Hart, his focus was sharper than ever. He stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, gazing at the bustling city below, the weight of suspicion pressing heavily on his shoulders. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. His assistant, Martha Green, entered, carrying the morning's reports, along with a small, nondescript manila envelope. "This came for you, sir," she said, placing the envelope on his desk. "Who sent it?" Ethan asked, his brow furrowing as he studied the unmarked package. "No name, no return address," Martha replied. "It was delivered directly to the front desk, but the courier left before anyone could question him." Ethan's instincts flared. Years of navigating high-stakes deals had honed his ability to spot when something was off. "Thank you, Martha. That'll be all for now." Once the door clicked shut, Ethan approached his desk cautiously. He reached for the envelope, its unassuming weight belied by the sense of foreboding it carried. Carefully he opened it, revealing a stack of papers and a USB drive. As he flipped through the documents, his breath caught. They contained highly sensitive information: internal emails, financial records, and project schematics. At the center of it all was Jonathan Reed, his COO and longtime confidant. The documents detailed secret meetings, unauthorized transactions, and communications with Summit Tech, their fiercest competitor. Ethan's stomach churned as he read a damning exchange between Jonathan and Edward Klein, Summit Tech's CEO. "The deal is almost finalized. Carter's health scare has made him vulnerable. Once Phoenix is secured, Carter Innovations will be ours." The betrayal was more elaborate than Ethan had imagined. This wasn't just corporate espionage. It was a calculated move to dismantle everything he had built. Ethan plugged the USB drive into his computer, revealing video recordings from a hidden camera. One clip showed Jonathan shaking hands with Edward in what appeared to be a private lounge. Another captured a heated discussion between Jonathan and Daniel Fisk, outlining strategies to force Ethan into early retirement. Ethan's grip on the desk tightened as the reality set in. The man he had trusted for years was conspiring to rip his company out from under him. Memories of his early days with Jonathan flooded back. Ethan could still see the two of them in a cramped garage, sketching out plans for what would become Carter Innovations. They had worked side by side, celebrating every milestone with the camaraderie of brothers. But now, that trust felt like a distant illusion. A knock on the door pulled Ethan from his thoughts. It was Marcus Bailey, his head of security, a former Marine with a no-nonsense demeanor. "Mr. Carter, you called for me?" Ethan gestured for Marcus to enter, handing him the envelope and USB drive. "I need you to confirm the authenticity of these and find out who sent them." Discreetly. Marcus nodded, his sharp eyes scanning the contents. "Understood. I'll prioritize this." "And one more thing," Ethan added. "Increase surveillance on Jonathan Reed. I want to know everywhere he goes and everyone he talks to." "Consider it done," Marcus replied before leaving the office. As the day progressed, Ethan's paranoia deepened. The betrayal felt personal, but it also aligned too perfectly with Sophia Clark's cryptic warning. How did she know? The question lingered as Ethan sifted through his thoughts. He had to find Sophia again, to press her for answers. But first, he needed to secure his company. That evening, Ethan returned to his mansion, greeted by the comforting familiarity of Maria Sanchez, his longtime housekeeper. "Good evening, Mr. Carter," Maria said warmly. "Dinner is ready whenever you are." "Thank you, Maria," Ethan replied absently. "I'll eat later." He retreated to his study, a room filled with the echoes of his life's work, awards, patents, and framed photos of his late wife, Emily. He poured himself a glass of scotch, the amber liquid a poor antidote to the turmoil in his mind. As he stared at Emily's photograph, he whispered, "I've fought my whole life to protect this. I won't let them take it." A sudden buzz from his phone snapped him out of his thoughts. It was a message from Marcus. "The files are legitimate. Whoever sent them wanted you to see this." Ethan replied, "Any leads on the sender?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it." Ethan placed the phone down, his mind spinning. Whoever had sent the package wasn't just a whistleblower. They had a personal stake in this. As the clock struck midnight, Ethan's thoughts turned back to Sophia. There was something about her, a familiarity he couldn't place. And the more he dwelled on it, the more he felt there was a connection he had yet to uncover. Unable to shake the feeling, Ethan made a decision. He would find Sophia Clark, no matter what it took. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Carter Innovations earlier than usual, his resolve unshaken. As he walked through the lobby, he spotted Lila Hart, standing near the elevator, her face pale. "Mr. Carter," she said, her voice trembling, "I need to talk to you." "What is it?" Ethan asked, his tone sharp. "It's about Jonathan," Lila said, glancing nervously over her shoulder. "I overheard him on a call this morning. He mentioned moving up the timeline." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Timeline for what?" "I don't know," Lila admitted, "but he sounded urgent, like something's happening soon." Ethan nodded. "Thank you, Lila. Keep your ears open, but don't do anything to draw attention to yourself." By midday, Marcus returned with new intel. We traced the package's origin to a courier service near Trinity Hills Hospital, he said. Ethan froze. Trinity Hills, where he had met Sophia. Did you find anything else? Ethan asked. Marcus shook his head. Not yet. But it's too much of a coincidence, Ethan agreed. The pieces were beginning to fit together. But he needed more answers. As the day wound down, Ethan sat alone in his office, staring at the city skyline. He was a man accustomed to control, yet his world felt precariously close to unraveling. Who sent the package? How deep does Jonathan's betrayal go? And why does Sophia Clark seem to know more than she should? The questions weighed heavily on him, but one thing was certain. Ethan wouldn't rest until he uncovered the truth. The late evening air in Austin carried a restless chill, matching the tension Ethan Carter felt as he stood outside the modest apartment complex. The address had been provided by Marcus Bailey, pieced together from hospital records and surveillance footage. It led here, a simple, unassuming building, worlds apart from the grandeur Ethan was accustomed to. He hesitated for a moment before climbing the stairs to the third floor, his polished shoes echoing softly against the worn concrete steps. Apartment 3B. The number was faintly scratched on a peeling brass plaque. Ethan knocked, his heart pounding harder than he cared to admit. The door opened, and there she was, Sophia Clark, the nurse who had warned him days ago. Dressed in casual clothes, her green eyes widened in surprise before narrowing with guarded curiosity. Mr. Carter, she said, her voice calm but wary. I wasn't expecting you. Ethan didn't waste time on pleasantries. You told me not to go to the meeting. You knew something was wrong. How? Sophia stepped aside, motioning him in. You might want to sit down. This is going to take a while. The apartment was modest but tidy, with personal touches that hinted at a quiet life. Framed photographs adorned the walls, and a faint aroma of chamomile lingered in the air. Ethan's gaze landed on one photo in particular, a younger woman with a warm smile and striking resemblance to Sophia. That's my mother, Sophia said, noticing his focus. Her voice softened. Her name was Emily Brooks. Ethan froze. Emily? His mind raced, memories of his late wife flooding back. The Emily he had loved so fiercely, whose death had left a void he had never truly filled. But something about the photo tugged at a long-buried thread of doubt. Sophia nodded, her expression heavy with emotion. I didn't know how to tell you this. My mother, Emily, she was your wife, and I'm your daughter. The room seemed to tilt, and Ethan gripped the armrest of the chair, his breath shallow. No, he whispered. That's impossible. Emily died over 20 years ago. She did, Sophia said, her voice trembling. But not in the way you think. Sophia began to recount a story Ethan could barely comprehend. Emily's death, as he knew it, had been a fabrication orchestrated by her mother, Margaret Brooks. Margaret had never approved of their relationship, fearing Ethan's ambition would consume Emily's dreams of becoming a doctor. When Mom found out she was pregnant with me, Margaret saw her chance, Sophia explained. She convinced Mom that you had abandoned her, that you didn't want a family. At the same time, she faked her own daughter's death, making you believe she was gone. Ethan's chest tightened. But the funeral, I was there. I saw her casket. It was a closed casket, Sophia said gently. Margaret arranged everything, paid witnesses, forged documents. Mom told me everything before she passed. The weight of the revelation was staggering. Ethan stared at Sophia, the unmistakable resemblance to Emily now piercingly clear. Her green eyes, her determined jawline, traits he had loved in Emily, now mirrored in the daughter he never knew he had. Ethan's voice was strained as he asked, "Why now? Why come to me after all these years?" Sophia hesitated, her hands wringing nervously. "Because I've been watching you, Mr. Carter, Dad, and I've seen what's happening at Carter Innovations. The betrayal, the conspiracy, it's bigger than you realize. I knew I had to warn you." Her words brought Ethan's focus back to the present. "What do you know about the conspiracy?" "More than I should," Sophia admitted. "I overheard Jonathan Reed at the hospital. He was on the phone, talking about accelerating their plans. That's when I started digging." Sophia walked to a small desk and retrieved a flash drive. "I found this. Emails, recordings, proof of their plans to sabotage Phoenix and sell your company to Summit Tech." Ethan took the drive, his hand trembling. "How did you get this?" "I've always been good with computers," Sophia said with a faint smile. "And I had help from someone you might know. Marcus Bailey. He doesn't trust Jonathan either." The magnitude of what Sophia had uncovered left Ethan reeling. He had been so consumed by his work, his ambition, that he had missed the rot festering within his own company. But now, with Sophia's revelations, everything was coming into focus. "Why risk yourself for this?" Ethan asked, his voice softer now. Sophia's expression grew resolute. "Because you're my father, and because Mom loved you until her last breath, even when she thought you'd left her. I wasn't going to let them destroy you." The room fell silent as Ethan absorbed her words. For years, he had buried himself in his work, trying to escape the pain of losing Emily. And now, standing before him, was a part of her he never knew existed, a daughter who had inherited her mother's strength and compassion. Ethan stood, his voice filled with quiet determination. "We're going to face this together. But first, I need to know everything." The hours that followed were filled with revelations. Sophia showed Ethan more files, detailing the extent of Jonathan's treachery. They pieced together the network of collaborators within Carter Innovations, including key figures who had worked tirelessly to undermine Ethan. As the night deepened, Ethan felt a mix of rage, regret, and hope. Rage at the betrayal, regret for the years he had lost with Emily and Sophia, and hope for the chance to rebuild what remained. When Ethan finally left the apartment, the streets were quiet, the city bathed in the soft glow of street lights. He looked up at the sky, the stars reminding him of Emily's favorite saying, "Even in the darkest night, the stars still shine." He whispered under his breath, "We'll shine again, Emily. I promise." The sun rose slowly over Austin, casting golden light across the cityscape. For Ethan Carter, the dawning day felt heavier than usual. The revelations from the night before had unraveled everything he thought he knew about his past, his company, and his very identity. He sat in his study, a steaming cup of coffee untouched on his desk, staring at a faded photo of Emily Brooks, the woman he had loved, lost, and now realized had never truly left him. Ethan picked up the phone and dialed Marcus Bailey. The line connected after 2 rings. "Marcus, I need a favor," Ethan said, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "Dig deeper into Margaret Brooks. I want everything. Her movements, her finances, her connections. And keep this quiet." "Understood," Marcus replied without hesitation. "I'll get back to you within the day." Ethan leaned back in his chair, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. Margaret's interference had stolen decades from him, decades he could have spent with Emily and Sophia. He was determined to uncover the full extent of her deceit. Later that morning, Sophia arrived at Ethan's mansion. She carried a weathered box, its corners frayed with age, and a hesitant expression. "I thought you should have this," she said, placing the box on his desk. It belonged to Mom. Ethan opened the lid carefully, revealing a treasure trove of memories. Inside were photographs of Emily, letters she had written but never sent, and a small velvet pouch containing a necklace he had given her on their first anniversary. His hands trembled as he lifted the delicate chain, the weight of regret nearly overwhelming him. "She kept everything," Sophia said softly. "Even when she thought you'd abandoned her, she held on to these." Ethan swallowed hard, his voice barely above a whisper. "I never stopped loving her, not for a second." Sophia sat across from him, her gaze steady. "I know, and so did she. That's why I think it's time we confront the rest of the truth." Over the next few hours, Sophia shared more about Emily's life after her supposed death. Margaret had uprooted Emily to a small town in New Mexico, isolating her from the world Ethan knew. Despite the lies, Emily had fought to create a life for Sophia, working as a nurse and raising her daughter with strength and love. "She used to tell me stories about you," Sophia said, her voice tinged with emotion. "How brilliant you were, how determined. She wanted me to understand why she loved you, even when she thought you'd left her." Ethan felt a lump rise in his throat. And Margaret? How did she justify what she did? "She claimed she was protecting Mom," Sophia replied. "But deep down, I think she was afraid of losing control. She couldn't let go of the narrative she'd created." As the day unfolded, Ethan and Sophia delved deeper into the box's contents. They found a journal Emily had kept during her final years, its pages filled with reflections, regrets, and dreams for the future. One entry in particular stood out. "I hope one day Sophia finds her father. She deserves to know the man I fell in love with, the man who inspired me to dream bigger than I ever thought possible." Ethan closed the journal, his resolve hardening. "We're going to find Margaret. She owes us the truth." By late afternoon, Marcus returned with the information Ethan had requested. "Margaret Brooks has been living under the radar in Santa Fe," Marcus reported. "She changed her name to Margaret Doyle and has been running a small boutique. Financial records show she's been sending large sums of money to an undisclosed account." Ethan's jaw tightened. "What's she hiding?" "I don't know yet," Marcus admitted. "But it's clear she's not as retired as she'd like people to think." Ethan turned to Sophia. "Pack a bag. We're going to Santa Fe." The drive to Santa Fe was quiet, but charged with anticipation. Ethan and Sophia exchanged stories, gradually bridging the gap of years they had lost. Sophia spoke of her childhood, the challenges of growing up without answers, and the moments of joy she shared with Emily. Ethan, in turn, shared his memories of meeting Emily, the spark that ignited their love, and the dreams they had once shared. "I wish I could have been there for you," Ethan said, his voice heavy with regret. "You're here now," Sophia replied. "And that's what matters." When they arrived in Santa Fe, the city's vibrant colors and adobe-style buildings seemed at odds with the somber purpose of their visit. Margaret's boutique was nestled on a quiet street, its sign reading La Vie en Rose. Ethan and Sophia entered the shop, their presence immediately drawing the attention of an older woman behind the counter. Margaret's face paled as she recognized Ethan, her carefully constructed facade crumbling in an instant. "Ethan," she said, her voice trembling, "I didn't think I'd ever see you again." "You have a lot to answer for, Margaret," Ethan replied, his tone cold. "But first tell me why. Why did you destroy everything?" Margaret sighed, her shoulders slumping under the weight of years of guilt. "I thought I was protecting Emily. She was so young, so full of dreams. I was afraid you'd overshadow her, that she'd lose herself in your world." "You had no right," Ethan said sharply. You stole our lives, our family." Margaret's eyes filled with tears. "I know, and I've lived with that guilt every day. But by the time I realized my mistake, it was too late. Emily was gone, and I didn't know how to fix what I'd done." Sophia stepped forward, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "You didn't just hurt them, Grandma. You hurt me, too. I grew up without my father because of you." Margaret reached for Sophia's hand, but Sophia stepped back, her resolve unshaken. "I loved Mom, and I'm grateful for the life she gave me. But you don't get to rewrite the past." Ethan took a deep breath, his anger tempered by the weight of the moment. "Margaret, if you truly want to make amends, you'll tell us everything. No more lies, no more secrets." Margaret nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "There's something else you need to see." Margaret led them to the back room of the boutique, where she retrieved a locked box. Inside were letters, photos, and documents that filled in the missing pieces of their story. Among them was a letter Emily had written shortly before her death. "To Ethan, if you ever find this, I loved you then, I love you now, and I will love you always. I hope one day you and Sophia can find each other and rebuild the life we were denied." Ethan clutched the letter, tears streaming down his face. "She never stopped believing in us." Sophia placed a hand on his shoulder. "And now, we have a chance to honor her memory." As the sun set over Santa Fe, Ethan and Sophia left the boutique with a renewed sense of purpose. The road ahead would be challenging, but they were determined to face it together. Margaret watched them go, her heart heavy with regret, but also with hope. For the first time in years, she felt the faint glimmer of redemption. The journey back to Austin was shrouded in a heavy silence. Ethan Carter and Sophia Clark sat side by side in the private jet, their thoughts consumed by the revelations in Santa Fe. Margaret's confessions and Emily's final letter had only deepened their resolve to uncover the full scope of the conspiracy threatening Carter Innovations, and to ensure that Emily's sacrifices hadn't been in vain. Ethan stared out the window, his mind racing with possibilities. Sophia sat across from him, her laptop open, her fingers moving swiftly across the keyboard. The tension in the air was palpable, but it was underpinned by a growing sense of determination. Back in Austin, Ethan immediately convened a private meeting with Marcus Bailey and Lila Hart. Sophia joined them, armed with her growing dossier of evidence against Jonathan Reed and his Summit Tech collaborators. The group gathered in Ethan's private study, a space that had now become the nerve center of their fight. "Jonathan's ambitions are bigger than we thought," Sophia began, projecting encrypted emails onto a large monitor. "He's not just trying to sell off Phoenix. He's setting the stage for a hostile takeover of Carter Innovations." Lila leaned forward, her expression a mix of shock and anger. "He's been with the company for decades. How could he betray everything we've built?" "Money," Marcus said simply, his tone cold. "And power. It always comes down to those two things." Ethan nodded, his gaze fixed on the screen. "Phoenix isn't just a project. It's the future of telecommunications. If Jonathan succeeds in selling it to Summit Tech, it will make them untouchable in the industry and destroy everything we've worked for." Sophia's technical expertise proved invaluable as she delved deeper into the encrypted files she had retrieved. Each discovery painted a clearer picture of the conspiracy's scale. Bank transfers to offshore accounts, secret meetings disguised as corporate events, and even coded communications between Jonathan and high-ranking Summit Tech executives. One email caught Sophia's attention. "Look at this," she said, enlarging the screen. "They've scheduled another meeting in 3 days. It's set to take place at a remote location outside Austin. Ethan frowned. A meeting for what? To finalize the sale, Sophia replied. They're planning to transfer Phoenix's intellectual property to Summit Tech before anyone notices. Marcus crossed his arms. If we're going to stop this, we'll need more than just emails. We'll need irrefutable proof. As the group strategized, Ethan decided it was time to shed light on Phoenix itself. He brought out a detailed blueprint of the project, spreading it across the table. The design was intricate, showcasing years of innovation and collaboration. Phoenix isn't just another product, Ethan explained. It's a quantum leap in communication technology. It has the potential to create instant, secure connections across the globe, breaking down barriers and redefining how we interact. Lila's eyes widened as she studied the blueprint. This could change everything. No wonder Summit Tech wants it so badly. That's exactly why we can't let them take it, Ethan said firmly. Phoenix represents everything Carter Innovations stands for. Pushing boundaries, creating connections, and building a better future. Later that night, Sophia continued her investigation from her temporary office in Ethan's mansion. The glow of her laptop illuminated her face as she worked tirelessly, piecing together the final threads of the conspiracy. Her perseverance paid off. Hidden among the files was a video recording of a meeting between Jonathan and Summit Tech's COO, David Langston. The footage, captured on a concealed device, revealed the full extent of their plans. Once we control Phoenix, Carter Innovations will collapse under its own weight, Langston said, with a sly smile. Ethan Carter is a relic. It's time for a new era. Sophia's heart raced as she saved the file. This was the smoking gun they needed. As dawn broke, Ethan found Sophia in the mansion's library, still engrossed in her work. He approached her quietly, a cup of coffee in hand. "You've been at this all night," he said, placing the cup beside her. "You should rest." Sophia looked up, her exhaustion evident, but overshadowed by her determination. "I'm fine. We're getting closer, Dad. I can feel it." The word Dad still caught Ethan off guard, but it also filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. "You've done more than I could have ever asked for," he said softly. "Emily would be so proud of you." Sophia smiled faintly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I just want to make things right. For both of us." With the recording in hand, Ethan and his team devised a bold plan. They would intercept the upcoming meeting and gather undeniable proof of the conspiracy. Marcus and Lila began coordinating logistics, while Sophia focused on securing the necessary surveillance equipment. "This is risky," Marcus warned during their briefing. "If Jonathan or Summit Tech suspects anything, they'll shut us down before we can act." Ethan's jaw tightened. "We don't have a choice. If we wait, it'll be too late." Sophia nodded. "We'll be careful, but we have to do this." As the team prepared for the operation, Ethan reflected on the stakes. He stood on the balcony of his mansion, the city lights twinkling below. The battle for Carter Innovations was about more than just a company. It was about preserving a legacy, honoring Emily's memory, and building a future for Sophia. Sophia joined him, her presence grounding him in the moment. "Do you think we'll succeed?" she asked quietly. Ethan turned to her, his gaze steady. "We have to. For Emily, for Phoenix, and for us." The air in Ethan Carter's mansion was thick with tension as preparations for the infiltration reached a fever pitch. Every member of the team, Ethan, Sophia, Marcus Bailey, and Lila Hart, was working tirelessly, knowing the stakes had never been higher. The upcoming meeting with Jonathan Reed and Summit Tech would either save Carter Innovations or destroy it entirely. Ethan called a meeting in his study. where blueprints of the meeting venue and surveillance equipment were spread across the table. He began with a firm tone, his usual charismatic confidence now tinged with urgency. "We're up against powerful people," he said. "This isn't just about protecting Phoenix. It's about ensuring the future of Carter Innovations. If we fail, everything we've built will fall into their hands." Sophia leaned forward, her determination evident. "We have the evidence we need, but we can't risk tipping them off. We have to be precise." Lila, seated beside her, nodded. "I've been going through internal company records. There are anomalies, data breaches, unauthorized logins, originating from Jonathan's office. If we can confirm he's been feeding Summit Tech classified information, we'll have a solid case." Marcus, ever the pragmatist, interjected. "But if they catch wind of us, they'll destroy everything before we can act. We'll need eyes and ears everywhere, and we'll need backup plans." Ethan's gaze swept across the room, lingering on each member of his team. "We're not just fighting for a company. We're fighting for what's right. Let's get to work." As the hours passed, tension grew among the team. Marcus was suspicious of everyone outside their circle, even Lila, whose loyalty to Carter Innovations had been unwavering until now. During a private conversation with Ethan, Marcus voiced his concerns. "I don't trust her," he said bluntly, gesturing toward Lila's workstation. "She's too close to Jonathan. What if she's a double agent?" Ethan frowned, considering Marcus's words. "I've known Lila for years. She's ambitious, but she's also loyal. She wouldn't betray us." "Loyalty can be bought," Marcus replied. "We can't afford to take any chances." Sophia overheard the exchange and stepped in. "Lila's on our side," she said firmly. "She's been working just as hard as the rest of us. If we start doubting each other now, we'll lose before we even begin." Ethan nodded, appreciating Sophia's perspective. "Let's focus on the mission. We can't let paranoia tear us apart." Lila, unaware of Marcus's doubts, was wrestling with her own internal conflict. She had idolized Ethan for years, admiring his vision and determination. But Jonathan's betrayal had shaken her, forcing her to question everything she thought she knew about the company. One evening, as she reviewed the Phoenix Project schematics, Jonathan appeared at her desk. His charm was as polished as ever, but there was an underlying menace in his tone. "You've been working late," he said casually, glancing at her screen. "That kind of dedication doesn't go unnoticed." Leela stiffened. "Just trying to do my part." Jonathan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Good. Loyalty is important. But remember, sometimes the best way to secure your future is to align with the winning side." The veiled threat sent a chill down Lila's spine. As soon as Jonathan left, she hurried to Ethan's mansion, her resolve strengthened. She wouldn't let fear dictate her actions. While reviewing surveillance footage from Carter Innovations, Sophia and Marcus discovered something alarming. One of Jonathan's assistants, Gregory Phelps, had been accessing secure files late at night. The footage showed him copying data onto an external drive. Ethan clenched his fists as he watched the video. "We've got a mole," Marcus smirked, "and we're going to use him." The team devised a plan to intercept Gregory and extract information about the meeting. Using Marcus's security expertise, they lured him into a trap at a quiet cafe near the Carter Innovations headquarters. When Gregory arrived, Marcus and Sophia confronted him. At first, he denied everything. But when Sophia played the footage, his defiance crumbled. "They're planning to finalize the deal in 2 days," Gregory admitted, his voice shaking. "They've already transferred some of the Phoenix schematics to Summit Tech." Ethan's anger flared. "How much damage have they done?" Not enough to ruin you, Gregory stammered. But if they get their hands on the encryption keys, it's over. Despite the chaos, Ethan and Sophia found moments to strengthen their bond. Late one evening, they sat in the mansion's kitchen, sharing a quiet conversation over cups of tea. "I never thought I'd have this," Ethan said, his voice filled with emotion. "A chance to know my daughter." Sophia smiled softly. "I never thought I'd meet my father. But here we are." Ethan reached across the table, placing a hand on hers. "Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. You're stronger than I ever imagined." Sophia squeezed his hand. "And you're more human than I expected." They shared a laugh, the warmth of the moment cutting through the tension of their circumstances. As the day of the meeting approached, the team finalized their plan. Lila would remain at Carter Innovations to monitor the situation remotely, providing real-time updates. Marcus and Sophia would infiltrate the venue, using forged credentials and concealed equipment. Ethan would act as the public face, drawing attention away from their covert activities. The night before the operation, Ethan addressed the team. "We've come too far to back down now. Tomorrow, we take back what's ours." As the team prepared for the mission, the gravity of their situation weighed heavily on them. They were up against powerful forces, with vast resources and no hesitation to destroy anyone in their way. But despite the risks, their determination remained unshaken. Sophia stood beside Ethan on the balcony, the city lights stretching out before them. "Do you think we're ready?" she asked quietly. Ethan glanced at her, his expression resolute. "We don't have a choice. Whatever happens, we'll face it together." The grand dining hall of Jonathan Reed's opulent estate was a stark contrast to the covert scheming unfolding within its walls. Crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow over the elegantly set table, laden with gourmet dishes and expensive wine. Ethan Carter adjusted his cufflinks, his expression a mask of calm determination as he entered the room. Sophia Clark, waiting discreetly in the car outside, checked her equipment one last time. Hidden in her handbag was a compact recording device, ready to capture any incriminating evidence during the evening. The dinner invitation had arrived unexpectedly that morning, delivered with an air of feigned congeniality. Ethan had known Jonathan Reed long enough to recognize the undercurrents of manipulation in the gesture. This wasn't a social call. It was a test. As Ethan prepared for the evening, Marcus voiced his concerns. "This could be a trap. Jonathan's not the type to entertain, unless he's got an agenda." "I know," Ethan replied, fastening his watch, "but we need to know what he's planning. If he suspects we're onto him, this dinner might give us the leverage we need." Sophia had insisted on being part of the operation. "If things go south, you'll need a backup plan," she said firmly. Ethan had hesitated, but ultimately agreed. "Stay out of sight. And whatever happens, don't take unnecessary risks." Jonathan greeted Ethan with his signature charm, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Ethan, it's good to see you. You've been missed at the office." Ethan returned the smile, his tone light but deliberate. "It's good to be back. Let's hope my absence didn't disrupt too much." Jonathan chuckled, gesturing toward the table. "Nonsense. We've managed just fine, though things are always smoother with you at the helm." The two men took their seats, joined by a few other board members. The conversation started innocuously enough. Discussions of market trends, upcoming projects, and polite inquiries about Ethan's health. But the undertone of the evening was anything but casual. As the courses progressed, Jonathan's questions became increasingly pointed. "So, Ethan, how are you finding the workload after your recovery? Must be challenging to keep up with the pace." Ethan sipped his wine, maintaining his composure. I'm as sharp as ever, Jonathan. A little time away only clarified my priorities. Jonathan's gaze lingered for a moment before he nodded. That's good to hear. The Phoenix Project, for instance, it must feel satisfying to see it come to fruition after all these years. Ethan's jaw tightened imperceptibly. Phoenix is the culmination of years of dedication from everyone at Carter Innovations. I trust you'll agree it's our most valuable asset. Jonathan's smile widened, but his eyes remained cold. Undoubtedly, a game changer really. While Ethan sparred verbally with Jonathan, Sophia moved stealthily through the house. Posing as an assistant, helping with event logistics, she navigated her way to Jonathan's private office. Her objective was clear: plant the recording device and extract any critical files. Inside the office, Sophia worked quickly, her heart pounding as she accessed Jonathan's computer. She inserted a flash drive, designed by Marcus, to clone its contents. As the progress bar inched forward, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Sophia froze, her pulse racing. She slipped behind a large bookshelf just as a butler entered, tidying the desk before leaving. Sophia exhaled silently, her fingers trembling as she retrieved the flash drive and slipped out of the room. Back at the dinner table, Jonathan's demeanor shifted. "Ethan," he began, leaning forward, "you've always been a visionary. But don't you think it's time to consider new leadership? Someone with fresh energy, perhaps?" Ethan met his gaze evenly. "I appreciate the concern, Jonathan, but I have no intention of stepping down. Carter Innovations is my life's work." Jonathan's smile faltered for the briefest moment. "Of course. But as a friend, I'd advise you to think about what's best for the company's future." Ethan's voice turned icy. "The company's future is Phoenix, and I'll ensure it stays in the right hands." As the dinner concluded, Sophia slipped back into the car, her heart still pounding from the close call in Jonathan's office. She texted Marcus a single word: "Got it." When Ethan joined her moments later, his expression was a mix of frustration and resolve. "He's testing me. He knows something's off." Sophia handed him the flash drive. "Then, let's stay one step ahead." Back at the mansion, the team gathered to review the contents of the flash drive. What they found was explosive: detailed plans for the Phoenix sale, including emails implicating several high-ranking board members and Summit Tech executives. Ethan's face darkened as he scrolled through the files. "This is it. We have enough to expose them." The revelations only heightened the stakes. Marcus urged caution. "If they realize we've got this, they'll bury it all before we can act." Ethan nodded. "We'll strike fast. But we need to be airtight. No room for error." Sophia chimed in, her determination unwavering. "I'll start analyzing the files for any weaknesses we can exploit. This has to be ironclad." Lila, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "If we pull this off, it's not just about saving the company. It's about showing everyone that people like Jonathan don't get to win." Ethan placed a hand on her shoulder. "And we will. Together." As the team worked late into the night, a message arrived on Ethan's phone. It was from Jonathan. "We should talk soon. Don't make any decisions you'll regret." Ethan stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. "He's getting desperate." Sophia glanced at the message, her expression grim. "Desperate people are dangerous. We need to be ready for anything." Ethan nodded. "We will be." The countdown to the secret meeting had begun. Ethan Carter and his team were operating at full tilt, their plan carefully choreographed to expose Jonathan Reed and his co-conspirators. Every detail was meticulously rehearsed, and every contingency anticipated. Yet, As the stakes climbed higher, so did the tension. Sophia Clark was hunched over her laptop in Ethan's study, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she decrypted the final set of files retrieved from Jonathan's computer. Her brow furrowed as a new revelation unfolded before her eyes. "They are not just selling Phoenix," she announced, her voice laced with urgency. "They're transferring the entire company's intellectual property portfolio to Summit Tech. This isn't a partnership. It's a takeover." Ethan's jaw clenched as he paced the room. "We can't let this happen." "What else have you found?" Sophia pointed to the screen. "The meeting is happening at the Meridian Hotel tomorrow night. I've got the attendee list. Jonathan, several board members, and Summit Tech's top executives. They're finalizing the deal." Marcus Bailey leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "We'll need hard evidence from that meeting. A few files aren't going to cut it in court." Ethan nodded. "Then we'll get it. Sophia, are you ready?" Sophia's eyes met his. Always. The plan was bold and fraught with risks. Sophia would pose as hotel staff to infiltrate the meeting room, armed with hidden recording devices. Marcus would remain on standby, monitoring security feeds and coordinating from a van parked nearby. Lila Hart, stationed at Carter Innovations, would oversee the digital operation, ensuring no critical files were erased or tampered with during the mission. Ethan, as the face of the company, would attend the meeting as an uninvited guest, a calculated risk designed to distract the conspirators and buy Sophia the time she needed. "We'll only get one shot at this," Marcus warned during their final briefing. "If they catch wind of what we're doing, we're done." Sophia glanced at Ethan, her determination unshaken. "We've come too far to back out now." The Meridian Hotel stood tall and imposing in the heart of the city, its sleek glass facade reflecting the twinkling lights of the skyline. Inside, preparations for the clandestine meeting were underway, with security guards stationed discreetly around the conference wing. Sophia, dressed in the crisp uniform of hotel staff, moved confidently through the halls, her nerves hidden beneath a veneer of professionalism. In her ear, Marcus's voice crackled through a concealed earpiece. "Camera blind spot ahead," he instructed. "Turn left and head to the service elevator." Sophia followed his guidance, her heart pounding as she approached the meeting room. She passed a group of Summit Tech executives, their hushed conversation confirming the stakes of the night. Inside the room, Jonathan and the board members were gathered, their expressions a mix of anticipation and unease. Contracts were spread across the table, alongside bottles of champagne, a celebration waiting to be uncorked. Ethan strode into the lobby, exuding confidence despite the storm raging within him. He greeted the concierge with a nod, his tailored suit and commanding presence ensuring no one questioned his arrival. As he made his way to the elevator, his phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. "They're all in the room. Oh, Sophia's in position." Ethan's response was brief. "Good. I'm heading up." When he entered the conference room unannounced, the conspirators froze. Jonathan was the first to recover, his smile strained. "Ethan, what a surprise. We weren't expecting you." Ethan returned the smile, his voice cool. "I thought I'd stop by. After all, it's not every day my company is sold out from under me." While Ethan confronted the conspirators, Sophia was working swiftly and silently. From her vantage point in the service corridor, she slid a miniature camera under the door, capturing a live feed of the meeting. Her hands were steady as she placed a directional microphone near the air vent, ensuring every word spoken in the room was recorded. Marcus's voice guided her through each step. "You've got 5 minutes before security makes their next round. Get the files and get out." Sophia slipped into the room, adjacent to the conference hall, where a laptop was set up for remote access. Using credentials obtained from Jonathan's assistant, she began downloading the incriminating documents. The progress bar crept forward agonizingly slowly. Back in the conference room, Ethan was playing his role to perfection. He kept the room's attention on him, challenging Jonathan with veiled accusations and sharp questions. "Transparency is key in any negotiation," Ethan said, his voice firm. "Perhaps you'd like to share the terms of this deal with the rest of the board." Jonathan's facade cracked, his frustration evident. "This isn't the time or place, Ethan. If you want answers, we can discuss them privately." Ethan smirked. "I think the shareholders would disagree." The tension was palpable, and every passing second felt like an eternity. Sophia's whispered voice broke through the earpiece. "I've got the files. Heading out now." As Sophia slipped back into the hallway, she nearly collided with a security guard. Thinking quickly, she feigned a casual demeanor, holding up the tray she had taken as a prop. "Just delivering refreshments," she said with a polite smile. The guard nodded and moved on, and Sophia exhaled in relief. "I'm clear," she whispered to Marcus. Back in the conference room, Ethan made his exit, his pleading words a subtle warning. "Jonathan, you've underestimated me before. Don't make that mistake again." Once safely back at the van, Sophia handed the files to Marcus, who began decrypting them on the spot. Ethan joined them moments later, his calm exterior betraying the adrenaline still coursing through him. "What have we got?" he asked. Marcus's eyes widened as he scrolled through the files. "Everything: contracts, emails, payment records. This isn't just a conspiracy, it's a crime." Ethan nodded, his resolve hardening. "Then, it's time we let the world know." As the team prepared for the next phase, a sense of triumph mixed with trepidation filled the air. They had the evidence, but exposing it would bring its own set of challenges. The battle was far from over. Sophia sat beside Ethan, her expression thoughtful. "Do you think this will be enough?" Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "It has to be. We've fought too hard to let them win." Outside, the city lights sparkled like distant stars, a reminder of the world they were fighting to protect. Inside the van, the team braced themselves for the storm that was about to break. The sun rose over the city, illuminating the skyline with hues of gold and crimson. Inside Carter Innovations headquarters, Ethan Carter stood in front of a full-length mirror, adjusting his tie. His reflection revealed a man exuding calm confidence, but inside, his thoughts were a storm of preparation and anticipation. Today was the day everything would come to light. The team was gathered in the secure room beneath the mansion, their eyes fixed on a large screen displaying the final version of the presentation. Marcus Bailey was at the helm, ensuring all the technical elements were flawless. Sophia Clark reviewed the evidence one last time, her expression a mix of focus and nervous energy. "We've got the documents, the audio recordings, and the live feed ready to stream," Marcus confirmed. "Once we go live, there's no turning back." Ethan nodded. "Good. This isn't just about me or the company. It's about accountability. They need to know they can't manipulate the system without consequences." Sophia placed a hand on Ethan's arm. "We've got your back." The press conference was scheduled to begin at 3 p.m., and by noon, reporters from every major outlet had already started to fill the Carter Innovations lobby. Cameras flashed as Ethan entered the building, flanked by Marcus and Sophia. The tension was palpable, and the air buzzed with speculation. Rumors of internal conflict within the company had been circulating for weeks, but no one expected what was about to unfold. Ethan's assistant, Martha Green, greeted them near the elevator. Everything is set. The press is restless, and the board members are starting to sweat. Ethan gave her a small smile. Let's keep them guessing a little longer. As the conference room filled to capacity, Jonathan Reed and his co-conspirators sat in their designated seats, their expressions a mix of feigned indifference and barely concealed unease. Ethan took his place at the podium, his demeanor calm but commanding. "Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady. "Carter Innovations has always been about transparency and innovation. Today, I intend to honor that commitment by addressing certain allegations and unveiling the truth." The reporters leaned forward, their pens poised and cameras focused. Ethan clicked a button on the remote in his hand, and the screen behind him lit up with the first slide. An email thread between Jonathan Reed and Summit Tech executives discussing the terms of the Phoenix sale. A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Ethan continued, his tone unwavering. "These emails reveal a coordinated effort by certain individuals within this company to sell not just the Phoenix project, but the future of Carter Innovations to our main competitor, Summit Tech. This was done without the consent or knowledge of the majority of our board members or shareholders." Jonathan's face paled, and he shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The reporters began firing questions, but Ethan held up a hand to silence them. "There's more," he said. Ethan gestured to Marcus, who activated the live feed. The screen switched to a video of the secret meeting at the Meridian Hotel, showing Jonathan and several other board members signing documents with Summit Tech executives. Sophia's voice, calm and professional, narrated the recording. "This footage was obtained legally and confirms the intent to transfer all intellectual property related to Phoenix in exchange for personal financial gains." Jonathan stood abruptly, his voice shaking. "This is a setup. You can't prove anything." Ethan's eyes locked on him. "Sit down, Jonathan. The proof is right here." The room erupted into chaos. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed wildly, and the board members began whispering furiously among themselves. Security personnel moved closer to Jonathan, who was now visibly panicking. Sophia stepped forward, her voice cutting through the noise. "What you've just seen is only the beginning. We have contracts, audio recordings, and financial statements to support these claims. All of it will be handed over to the authorities." Jonathan's defiance crumbled, and he sank back into his seat. Ethan took the microphone again, his voice steady but laced with emotion. "This isn't just about greed or betrayal. It's about protecting the legacy we've built and ensuring that the people who trust us, the employees, the shareholders, and the customers, know that we stand for integrity." He turned to the board members, his gaze piercing. "This company isn't for sale, and neither is its future." The reporters erupted in applause, their earlier skepticism replaced by admiration. Ethan stepped back, allowing Sophia to field technical questions about the evidence, while Marcus coordinated with the legal team to ensure everything was airtight. As the press conference concluded, the authorities arrived to escort Jonathan and his co-conspirators from the building. The sight of them in handcuffs sent a clear message. Justice was being served. Ethan retreated to his office, the adrenaline finally beginning to wear off. Sophia and Marcus joined him, their expressions a mix of relief and pride. "We did it," Sophia said softly. Ethan nodded. "We did. But this is only the beginning. There's still so much to rebuild." That evening, Ethan stood on the balcony of his penthouse, gazing out at the city skyline. Sophia joined him, a glass of wine in hand. "We'll rebuild, Dad," she said. The word still new but comforting. "Together." Ethan looked at her, a small smile playing on his lips. Together. As the city lights twinkled below, The two of them shared a moment of quiet triumph, knowing that while the battle had been hard fought, the war for Carter Innovations and their family was far from over. The fallout from the press conference reverberated throughout the city, shaking the foundations of Carter Innovations and sending shockwaves through the business world. The scandal dominated headlines, with Ethan Carter hailed as a whistleblower and savior of his company. Yet, amidst the public praise, Ethan faced a more personal challenge, rebuilding the trust, fractured by betrayal and secrecy. The boardroom, once a hub of ambitious plans and lively debate, now felt like a ghost town. Ethan stood at the head of the long table, facing the remaining board members. Their faces reflected a mixture of relief, shame, and lingering doubt. "We've endured a betrayal that cuts deeper than I ever imagined," Ethan began, his voice firm, yet tempered by sincerity. "But this is not the end. It's an opportunity to rebuild, not just our company, but our integrity." A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Martha Green, his loyal assistant, nodded encouragingly from her seat. "We trust your leadership, Mr. Carter. Let's move forward." Ethan glanced at Lila Hart, the junior employee who had proven herself invaluable during the crisis. She shifted nervously under his gaze. "Lila," Ethan said, his tone softening, "your dedication hasn't gone unnoticed. Effective immediately, you'll take on a leadership role in the Phoenix Project." Lila's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just—" "You've shown more integrity and courage than many seasoned professionals," Ethan interrupted. "You've earned this." The room erupted in applause, and Lila smiled, her confidence visibly growing. Later that day, Ethan met with Sophia Clark in the company's newly established Innovation Hub. The sleek, modern space buzzed with activity as engineers and developers worked on Phoenix under Lila's direction. Sophia studied the team with interest. "They seem different, lighter somehow." Ethan nodded. "The rot is gone. Now we can focus on what matters." As they walked through the hub, Ethan paused. "Sophia, I want you to be part of this too. Your skills, your perspective, they're exactly what we need." Sophia hesitated, her fingers brushing against the edge of a workbench. "I'm not sure I belong here. This was your world, not mine." "You belong," Ethan said firmly. "Not just because of who you are to me, but because of what you've already done. Carter Innovations needs people who think like you." Sophia smiled, a flicker of pride in her expression. "Then let's make it happen." Rebuilding trust extended beyond the boardroom and the Innovation Hub. Ethan took to the factory floor, walking among the assembly lines, where the heart of Carter Innovations beat. Workers paused in their tasks to greet him, their expressions a mix of curiosity and respect. One older worker, James Daniels, approached Ethan. "I've been with this company since the beginning," James said. "It hurt to see what was happening, but seeing you stand up for us, it means a lot." Ethan shook James's hand firmly. "This company is nothing without its people. Thank you for sticking with us." The exchange set the tone for the rest of the day, as Ethan listened to employees' concerns and shared his vision for the future. By the time he left, a sense of renewed purpose had taken root among the workforce. That evening, Ethan invited Sophia to his penthouse for dinner. The city lights twinkled below as they sat on the balcony, plates of food forgotten between them. "Do you think they'll forgive you?" Sophia asked, breaking the silence. Ethan stared out at the skyline. "The company might. The public might. But forgiveness isn't what I'm after. I want to earn their trust again. Yours included." Sophia tilted her head. "You've already earned it, Dad. You've fought for this company and for the truth. That means more than you know." Ethan looked at her, his expression softening. Thank you, Sophia. That means everything. In the weeks that followed, Carter Innovations began to flourish under its renewed leadership. Lila's confidence grew as she led the Phoenix team, her innovative ideas breathing new life into the project. Ethan remained a steady presence, balancing oversight with empowerment. Sophia, true to her word, joined the company as an advisor, her unique perspective proving invaluable. She also spearheaded initiatives aimed at fostering transparency and collaboration, inspired by the lessons learned from the scandal. To solidify the company's new direction, Ethan organized a company-wide event. Held in a sprawling park, the day was filled with team-building activities, food trucks, and speeches from key figures. Ethan addressed the crowd, his voice carrying across the field. This isn't just a celebration, it's a declaration. We're not defined by what's happened. We're defined by how we move forward. Together. The crowd erupted in cheers, and for the first time in months, Ethan felt a sense of peace. That night, as the festivities wound down, Sophia approached Ethan with a tentative smile. "There's someone here you should meet." Ethan turned to see Margaret Brooks, Sophia's grandmother, standing a few feet away. The older woman looked frail but determined, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Margaret's voice trembled as she spoke. "Ethan, I don't expect forgiveness. I wanted to see the man my daughter loved so much." Ethan studied her for a long moment before extending his hand. "Margaret, thank you for coming." The gesture wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. As the event ended, Ethan and Sophia stood together, watching the last of the employees leave. The night was quiet, filled only with the hum of the city. "We've come a long way," Sophia said. Ethan nodded. "And we've got a long way to go. But we'll get there." Sophia smiled. Together, under the city's shimmering lights, father and daughter shared a moment of quiet determination, knowing that their journey, both personal and professional, was far from over. The sun hovered low over the New Mexico desert, painting the landscape in shades of gold and orange, as Ethan Carter and Sophia Clark drove down a winding road. The air was heavy with anticipation, the kind that precedes confronting a ghost from the past. Margaret Brooks awaited them at her modest home, a woman whose choices had shaped the pain and separation Ethan and Sophia had endured for decades. Ethan glanced at Sophia, who stared out the window, lost in thought. The rhythmic hum of the car engine filled the silence between them. "You sure you're ready for this?" Ethan asked, breaking the quiet. Sophia turned to him, her expression a mixture of resolve and unease. "I have to be. I need to understand why she did what she did." Ethan nodded. "Me too." Margaret's house stood at the edge of a quiet neighborhood, surrounded by tall trees and blooming wildflowers. It was unassuming, a stark contrast to the storm of emotions swirling in Ethan and Sophia as they approached the front door. Margaret opened the door before they could knock, her frail frame silhouetted against the warm glow of the living room. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze was steady. "Ethan, Sophia," she greeted, her voice quiet but firm. "I didn't think you'd come." "We needed answers," Sophia said, stepping inside. Margaret gestured for them to sit. "Then I'll give you all that I can." The living room was filled with the faint scent of lavender and the hum of an old ceiling fan. Margaret sat across from Ethan and Sophia, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She began to speak, her words halting at first, but gaining strength as she recounted the past. "I thought I was protecting Emily," Margaret said, her voice thick with regret. "I saw Ethan as a distraction, someone who would pull her away from her dreams. When she told me she was pregnant, I panicked." Ethan's jaw tightened, but he remained silent, letting her continue. I lied to both of you, Margaret admitted. I told Emily you'd abandoned her, and I made you believe she was gone. I thought I was doing what was best for her, but I see now how wrong I was. Sophia's voice was steady but edged with emotion. You didn't just hurt Mom. You hurt me. You stole my chance to know my father. Margaret's eyes filled with tears. I know, and I'll carry that guilt for the rest of my life. Margaret reached for a small box on the table and handed it to Sophia. Inside were letters Emily had written but never sent, photographs of her as a young mother, and a journal filled with entries about her longing for Ethan. She loved you, Margaret said, looking at Ethan. Even after everything, she never stopped loving you. Ethan took one of the letters, his hands trembling. Emily's words leapt off the page, raw and heartfelt, a window into the life they could have shared. I missed so much, Ethan said, his voice breaking. Her, you, everything. Sophia placed a hand on his arm. We can't change the past, Dad, but we can decide what to do with it. Margaret turned to Sophia, her voice trembling. When Emily was dying, she made me promise to find Ethan and tell him the truth, but I was too much of a coward. It wasn't until I saw what was happening with the company, with Jonathan, that I realized I had to act. Sophia's expression softened, but her words were firm. You should have told me sooner. Maybe things could have been different. Margaret nodded. You're right. I can't undo the harm I've caused. But I want to help now, if you'll let me. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the three of them moved to the porch. The desert sky was awash with stars, a quiet backdrop to the emotional weight of their conversation. Ethan spoke first. Margaret, I don't know if I can forgive you, not yet. But I'm grateful you finally told the truth. Sophia looked at her grandmother, her expression a mix of pain and compassion. I'll need time to process this, but I appreciate that you're trying to make amends. Margaret's voice was barely a whisper. Thank you. The next morning, as they prepared to leave, Margaret handed Ethan another envelope. This is for the foundation you're building. Emily would have wanted to help. Ethan hesitated before taking it. Thank you. Sophia hugged her grandmother tightly. Take care of yourself, Grandma. Margaret watched them drive away, a solitary figure standing in the early morning light. For the first time in decades, she felt a glimmer of peace. As they drove back through the desert, Ethan glanced at Sophia. How do you feel? Lighter, Sophia said. Like a weight I didn't even know I was carrying has been lifted. Ethan nodded. Me too. They drove in silence for a while, the road stretching endlessly ahead. Back at the Carter Innovations headquarters, Ethan and Sophia gathered with their team to discuss the next steps for the Emily Brooks Foundation. The focus shifted to creating programs for single mothers, reuniting families, and offering scholarships for nursing students. Lila Hart, now firmly established as a rising leader in the company, presented a plan for integrating the foundation's initiatives with Carter Innovations' corporate outreach. Sophia beamed with pride. You've done an amazing job, Lila. Lila blushed. I had great mentors. The inauguration of the Emily Brooks Foundation was a turning point for Ethan Carter and Sophia Clark. Named in honor of Sophia's mother, the foundation symbolized hope, reconciliation, and a chance to transform their painful past into something meaningful for others. Yet, as they embarked on this new chapter, the challenges of building a legacy from the ashes of betrayal and loss were just beginning. The Carter Innovations headquarters had been transformed for the launch event. The atrium was adorned with photographs of Emily Brooks, depicting her as a vibrant young woman whose spirit now inspired a mission to uplift single mothers, reunite families, and provide educational opportunities for underserved communities. Ethan stood at the podium, his voice steady but filled with emotion. This foundation is more than a tribute. It's a promise, a commitment to ensure no family faces the pain of separation and loss that ours endured. Emily's memory will live on through every life we touch. Sophia stepped up beside him, adding, "This isn't just about the past. It's about building a future where compassion, support, and opportunity define our shared humanity." The audience erupted into applause, a mix of Carter Innovations employees, community leaders, and beneficiaries of the Foundation's initial programs. As the event wound down, Sophia spotted Margaret Brooks lingering near the edge of the crowd. She approached her grandmother, who seemed hesitant, almost out of place amidst the celebration. "Grandma, you came," Sophia said softly. Margaret nodded, her eyes glistening. "I couldn't stay away. Seeing what you and Ethan have built, it's more than I ever imagined." Sophia took her grandmother's hand. "You're part of this too. Your donation means more than you know." Margaret shook her head. "I don't deserve recognition. This is your and Ethan's moment. I just hope I can contribute in some small way." Sophia smiled. "You already have." Back at the penthouse later that evening, Ethan and Sophia reviewed the Foundation's next steps. The initial programs included scholarships for nursing students, a mentorship initiative for single mothers, and a legal aid fund to support families facing custody battles. "Do you think we're doing enough?" Ethan asked, his voice tinged with doubt. Sophia placed a reassuring hand on his. "We're doing more than enough. Mom would be proud." Ethan smiled. "You've inherited her compassion and her determination." Sophia looked thoughtful. "And I got my stubbornness from you." They both laughed, the tension easing as they realized how far they had come. Meanwhile, Lila Hart had been tasked with integrating the Foundation's programs into Carter Innovations' corporate outreach. Her innovative ideas and relentless drive quickly earned her respect among her peers. At a board meeting, Lila presented a proposal to partner with local universities and nonprofits to expand the Foundation's reach. "If we want this to be more than just a corporate initiative, we need to engage directly with the communities we aim to serve," she argued passionately. Ethan leaned back in his chair, impressed. "Lila, you're right. Let's make it happen." Sophia nodded in agreement. "You're becoming a force to be reckoned with, Lila." Lila blushed but smiled. "I learned from the best." One evening, Ethan visited Emily's grave for the first time since learning the truth about her death. He brought Sophia along, feeling the weight of the years they had lost. Standing before the simple headstone, Ethan's voice broke as he spoke. "Emily, I failed you in ways I can never make right. But I hope this foundation honors you in the way you deserve." Sophia placed a hand on his shoulder. "She'd be proud of you, Dad. Of us." The two stood in silence, the cool evening breeze carrying the scent of wildflowers. It was a moment of closure and renewed purpose. As the Foundation's work gained momentum, Ethan and Sophia began traveling to promote their mission. At a conference in Chicago, they spoke to an audience of business leaders about the importance of corporate responsibility. Ethan addressed the crowd with conviction. "True success isn't measured by profits or accolades. It's measured by the lives we impact and the legacy we leave behind." Sophia added, "We've learned that even from pain and loss, something beautiful can grow. It's up to all of us to nurture that growth." The speech received a standing ovation, solidifying the Foundation's reputation as a force for good. Back in New Mexico, Margaret began volunteering anonymously at a local community center, inspired by the Foundation's work. Though she remained hesitant to fully reconcile with Ethan and Sophia, she found solace in helping others. During one visit, Margaret confided in the center's director, "I've made mistakes I can never undo, but I want to spend whatever time I have left making amends." Her quiet acts of kindness did not go unnoticed, and word eventually reached Sophia, who felt a sense of bittersweet pride in her grandmother's transformation. The chapter ended with Ethan, Sophia, and Margaret sharing a quiet dinner at the penthouse. It was the first time they had all sat together as a family, a moment that felt both surreal and profoundly healing. Margaret raised her glass to Emily for her love, her strength, and the family she left behind. Ethan and Sophia clinked their glasses with hers, their expressions a mixture of sorrow and hope. As the night wore on, Ethan and Sophia discussed the Foundation's next big project, a nationwide initiative to provide housing for single mothers and their children. "We've done so much already," Ethan said, his tone reflective, "but I feel like we're just getting started." Sophia smiled. "That's the beauty of it, Dad. There's always more we can do." Under the city's glowing lights, the family looked ahead, ready to face whatever challenges the future held. Together, the Emily Brooks Foundation had taken off, its programs making an immediate impact in communities across the country. The organization's mission to reunite families, support single mothers, and provide scholarships for aspiring professionals gained national recognition. But as the Foundation's influence grew, so did the challenges it faced. For Ethan Carter, the battle was far from over. A lingering threat from Summit Tech loomed over both the Foundation and Carter Innovations. The stakes were higher than ever, and Ethan knew he would need all the allies he could muster to protect everything he had worked so hard to build. The first signs of trouble came in the form of a legal summons. Summit Tech, desperate to undermine Carter Innovations, filed a lawsuit claiming intellectual property infringement on Phoenix, the revolutionary platform Ethan had poured his life into. In the boardroom of Carter Innovations, Ethan reviewed the legal documents with a grim expression. His legal team outlined the potential consequences. If they succeed, they could claim ownership of Phoenix, said Amanda Walters, the company's chief legal officer. "We'd lose not only the project, but also the momentum it's brought to our market standing." Sophia, seated beside Ethan, interjected, "We can't let that happen. Phoenix isn't just a product, it's a symbol of everything we've worked for." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. But we need more than just legal defense. We need to prove they're acting in bad faith." As tensions escalated, Lila Hart, now a rising star at Carter Innovations, took it upon herself to find a way to turn the tide. Working late into the night, she pored over Phoenix's blueprints, searching for a breakthrough that could outpace anything Summit Tech could offer. One evening, she burst into Ethan's office, her eyes alight with excitement. "I've got it," she exclaimed, placing a stack of papers on his desk. Ethan raised an eyebrow. "God, what?" "A next-generation upgrade for Phoenix," Lila said. "Something they can't claim because it's entirely new. If we launch this, it'll render their lawsuit irrelevant." Sophia leaned over to examine Lila's work. "This is incredible, Lila. You've outdone yourself." Ethan smiled, pride evident in his expression. "Let's make it happen." The following week, Ethan and Sophia met with their legal team and key executives to strategize. They decided to counter Summit Tech's lawsuit by filing a countersuit, exposing Summit's unethical practices, including their attempts to bribe Carter Innovations employees. "We're not just defending ourselves," Ethan declared. "We're taking the fight to them." Sophia added, "And we'll do it while staying true to our values. This isn't just about winning, It's about showing the world what we stand for. Amid the corporate battle, Ethan faced a personal challenge. His health, still fragile after his heart attack, began to show signs of strain. Sophia noticed his growing fatigue and confronted him one evening. "Dad, you're pushing yourself too hard," she said, concern etched on her face. Ethan sighed. "I don't have a choice. If we lose this fight, everything we've built could fall apart." Sophia took his hand. "You won't do anyone any good if you collapse. Let me take on more of the burden. We're in this together, remember?" Reluctantly, Ethan agreed to delegate more responsibilities, trusting Sophia to lead alongside him. The legal battle reached its climax in a high-profile courtroom. Reporters crowded outside as Ethan and his team entered, their expressions determined. Inside, Summit Tech's lawyers presented their case, but Carter Innovations' legal team was prepared. Using evidence gathered by Sophia and Marcus Bailey, the head of security, they demonstrated Summit's attempts to sabotage Phoenix and steal proprietary information. Lila's breakthrough innovation further undermined Summit's claims, proving that Carter Innovations was always one step ahead. The judge's ruling was clear. Summit Tech's lawsuit was dismissed, and their unethical practices were referred for criminal investigation. Back at Carter Innovations, the atmosphere was electric. Employees gathered in the atrium to celebrate the victory, cheering as Ethan and Sophia addressed them. "This wasn't just a win for Carter Innovations," Ethan said. "It was a win for integrity, innovation, and the belief that doing the right thing still matters." Sophia added, "We couldn't have done this without every one of you. This is what teamwork and resilience look like." Lila, standing among the crowd, felt a swell of pride as her colleagues applauded her contributions. Later that evening, Ethan and Sophia returned to the penthouse. Sitting on the balcony, they watched the city lights twinkle below. "We did it," Sophia said, her voice filled with quiet satisfaction. Ethan nodded. "But this is just the beginning. The foundation, the company. There's still so much to do." Sophia smiled. "And we'll do it together." As they sat in comfortable silence, Ethan's thoughts turned to the future. The fight with Summit Tech had tested them in ways they hadn't anticipated, but it had also shown them what they were capable of achieving. "We've built something incredible," Ethan said. "But the true test will be sustaining it, making sure it lasts long, after we're gone." Sophia placed a hand on his arm. "We will, because we're not just building a legacy. We're building a future." The grand ballroom of the city's most prestigious venue was alive with the hum of conversation and the clinking of glasses. Guests from across the nation had gathered to celebrate the official launch of the Emily Brooks Foundation, a momentous event that marked not just the culmination of Ethan Carter's and Sophia Clark's journey, but the beginning of a mission that would touch countless lives. The evening was steeped in elegance, with shimmering chandeliers casting golden light over tables adorned with fresh lilies, Emily's favorite flower. The event was more than a gala. It was a testament to the power of second chances, unity, and the belief that even the deepest wounds could heal. Ethan stood behind the curtain, adjusting the lapel of his tuxedo. Though he had faced countless boardrooms, tonight felt different. This wasn't just about him. It was about honoring the memory of Emily and the bond he had rediscovered with Sophia. Sophia approached him, radiant in an emerald gown. "Nervous?" she teased. Ethan chuckled. "A little. But more than anything, I feel grateful." Sophia smiled warmly. "You've come a long way, Dad." "We both have." As the announcer called their names, Ethan and Sophia stepped onto the stage to a thunderous round of applause. Ethan's voice, steady with emotion, filled the room. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, Tonight, we celebrate more than the launch of a foundation. We celebrate resilience, forgiveness, and the enduring power of love. The Emily Brooks Foundation is not just a tribute to a remarkable woman. It is a promise to create a world where every family has a chance to thrive. Sophia took the microphone, her voice clear and confident. My mother, Emily, taught me that compassion is the greatest strength we have. This foundation will embody her spirit by providing scholarships for single mothers, resources for struggling families, and programs to ensure no one has to face life's challenges alone. She paused, scanning the room filled with supporters. This is our way of giving back, of ensuring that the pain we've experienced becomes a catalyst for change. The audience erupted into applause, moved by her heartfelt words. As the evening unfolded, Margaret Brooks, dressed modestly, watched from the shadows. Though she had declined a formal role in the foundation, she couldn't resist attending the event. Seeing Ethan and Sophia united, building something so meaningful, filled her with a bittersweet sense of pride. Sophia spotted her grandmother and excused herself from a conversation to approach her. "Grandma, you came." Margaret smiled, her eyes brimming with tears. "How could I not? This is beautiful. Your mother would be so proud." Sophia hugged her tightly. She'd be proud of all of us. Ethan found a quiet corner during the event, gazing at a portrait of Emily displayed prominently near the stage. The photograph captured her warmth and vitality, a reminder of all they had lost and regained. "Hard to believe, isn't it?" Sophia's voice broke his reverie as she joined him. Ethan nodded. "I spent years thinking success was measured by numbers, achievements, and accolades. But tonight, I realize it's about the impact we leave on the lives of others." Sophia took his hand. "And you're doing that, Dad. We both are." The highlight of the evening was a video montage celebrating Emily's life, narrated by Sophia. It showcased moments of her kindness, her struggles, and her dreams of making the world a better place. As the video ended, the audience rose to their feet, their applause echoing through the ballroom. Ethan, overcome with emotion, stood silently beside Sophia, holding her hand tightly. During the gala, Ethan announced the foundation's first major initiative, a partnership with local organizations to build transitional housing for single mothers and their children. "This isn't just about providing shelter," Ethan explained. "It's about giving families a chance to rebuild, to find stability, and to thrive." Sophia added, "And this is only the beginning. With your support, we can expand these programs nationwide." Midway through the evening, Lila Hart took the stage. Now, a rising leader within Carter Innovations, she had become a key player in the foundation's efforts. "I'm proud to announce," Lila began, her voice filled with excitement, "that Carter Innovations will donate a portion of its annual profits to support the foundation's initiatives. This is our way of ensuring that Emily's legacy continues to grow." The announcement was met with enthusiastic applause, cementing Carter Innovations' commitment to social responsibility. As the gala wound down, Margaret approached Ethan hesitantly. "Ethan, I just wanted to say thank you for giving me the chance to see this." Ethan studied her for a moment before nodding. "You've made mistakes, Margaret. But tonight, I see someone trying to make amends. That counts for something." Margaret's voice wavered. "I'll never undo the harm I caused, but I hope, in some small way, I can help you and Sophia create something good." Ethan extended his hand. "Let's focus on the future." As the lights dim on tonight's chapter of Ethan and Sophia's incredible journey, we're left with a powerful reminder. Second chances are rare, but when they come, they can change everything. What did you think about Ethan's transformation or Sophia's courage to rebuild a bond that was almost lost forever? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What part of their story resonated with you most? Share your perspective. It could inspire someone else. And if you're as captivated as we are, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. There's so much more to come in their journey, challenges, triumphs, and unexpected twists. Be here to see it all unfold. This is only the beginning. See you next time.